Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. I got to tell you, it's a great honor that I have Erin, and this is Erin, and Cindy Woodsmall joining me tonight. And we are going to talk about their newest book, Yesterday's Gone, which I'm going to tell you is going to be hard to not do spoilers because I finished it yesterday. And if you haven't read it, it's fabulous. You guys got to get your hands on a copy. I've been reading Cindy for quite a few years because you have written, as Erin told me, 26 books already.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. So you're in for a treat if you haven't read any of them, and I know a lot of you have read all of them. So first I'm going to have you guys tell us a little bit about your newest book, Yesterday's Gone.
Okay, well, I'll start and I'll let Erin take up after that. When Eliza and Jesse, which are a young Amish couple from rural Appalachia, are faced with unbearable losses, Eliza stumbles on an ancient power built from the prayers of her ancestors who crossed to America in the mid-1700s. And it's a power that gives her the ability to go back in time and change one key decision.
So we pitched the book as a time traveler's wife meets It's a Wonderful Life, the Christmas movie. And like Cindy said, it's a story set in a rich backdrop of Amish culture and with seemingly magical secrets to be discovered. And it is a bit of a twist on the usual Amish book in that we have a small speculative element in the vein of It's a Wonderful Life.
And I agree. I have to admit, I was not expecting it. And if anybody is worried about either the speculative part of it or the Amish part of it, don't be. It's just the Amish area. It's just where it's set, and the speculative works because it's something we all think about at some time or another, don't we?
Yes,
if we could wonder, yeah,
go back in time and change one decision is something I feel like everyone has at least thought about. Most people have had times of grieving over, well, I just made the wrong decision. If I could go back, I could spare myself or my loved ones pain. And that's the premise of this. And of course, it's based on, a quilt that the women prayed over while they were creating it through the 1700s, and it got prayed over in the 1800s and the 1900s. So it has some real power to it.
And that is true. One of the things, okay, there's so much I want to ask and so much I can't because I'm going to give some away. I just know it, so I'm going to apologize ahead of time. So if I do, well, send me angry emails. I'm okay with that, I guess. You had a week to read it, get it done. So what is your hope for what readers take away from this book?
Erin, would you like to begin with that one?
Absolutely. Just like how we can't know how changing one event happens, we can't see the depths of the power of love, how each action that we take out of love and kindness has a ripple effect. And like personally, I feel like there's a reason why Jesus says the most important commandment, the greatest commandment, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself, because those ripples of kindness affect everyone around us. And we have a character, Eliza, who sees herself as just a wife and mother, but she cannot see how much that she touches everyone around her. And part of this book is that journey.
One of the things that we're able to bring out because of the Amish is dealing with the social norms and the expectations. And for women in the early 1900s and all of life prior to that, there's a lot of expectations. And so for Eliza, it's to get married and have babies. And that's what's expected. And when this doesn't work, it's more than just heartache. It's also embarrassment that she can't do the one thing of just wife and mother. So we get to explore that and explore, the freedoms that we can find outside of caring to that depth what other people want of us.
Yes. Before we move on, Cindy, we were talking about this. She had such a powerful thing she was talking about as a takeaway. And it was, I'll get you started if you want.
What was my takeaway?
About how you can't avoid pain. You just dole it out differently.
Yes, which is something that really came through writing this book, because I thought, well, we can avoid this or we can avoid that. And we couldn't. All we could do was dole out the pain that she had erased by changing one event in the past, by changing one decision. And she just doled out that pain very differently to all of her loved ones and had not spared anyone anything, including herself, which was really a revelation to me and Eliza, the character.
Well, that's good. I'm glad she learned that anyways. So I have to admit, while I was reading it, and I want to, and you know this, we were talking a few minutes ago, where I want to get to the time traveler part of it, because it's a fascinating and interesting part of the story. But I kept finding, like you said, there's that part where Eliza was, how we affect each other was so interesting in this, and it all works together. It really does. It's just I have to admit, it was one of those things I don't even know what I want to ask first. So so here we are, me babbling and you guys answering strange questions. So
I love
it.
Yes.
So okay, I told you guys too, I wasn't quite sure how to say this. So first of all, now you guys have written 4 books together. I was trying to count them.
At least.
We
Was
have
that
6.
correct?
We have 6 books.
Okay.
I should have asked Erin. Sorry about that. So, so that's a little bit different for Cindy, because, like I said, I've been reading Cindy standalone by herself first. So, but second, because of that different element. So, what was the thought process of putting time travel in an Amish book?
This was something that there's a few things. This is something Cindy has wanted to do for a while. And like, I can't even think of how long ago it was when she had this idea. She's like, I know there's a cabin, and she goes to the cabin. I'm like, I'm loving those images. We have no idea what to do, but it took years to let this kind of percolate and brew to figure out what we wanted. And at a risk of getting too personal, we went through, we talk about it in the book. I lost a child at 20 weeks gestation, which is 5 months into pregnancy, to Ellis-Von-Creveld, which is the same disease that it's one of they call founder effect diseases, in that it disproportionately affects the Amish more than the general population. However, neither myself nor my husband have any Amish ancestry. And the version that we carry is on a different gene, but it's the same syndrome, if that makes sense. But I felt like it was, and Cindy at the time, I remember having this conversation while I was driving, like, this is too great a coincidence. We absolutely have to talk about this, and about genetic disease, and the fact that for Amish women, like, it's tough to go through it, period, like, not diminishing that. But here as Englishers, we have ultrasounds, we have preparation, we have these kind of modern technology. They're just in the dark, and their entire identity is wrapped up in if they can have children, these women. And we knew that we wanted to write a story that dealt with these heavy topics, and they are heavy topics. Anyone that I've handed the book to, I give them, like, just a warning, there is a child death in this book. It is tough, but it is an important journey that the character goes on. So we kind of had the merging of these ideas, and this story came together. And yes, it does have a fantasy-ish element to it, but it's in a familiar way. Both Cindy and I love the movie It's a Wonderful Life. It's a classic, like, because he just does not realize how his life touches others in a positive way. And we felt like that is an element that's familiar to a lot of us. And like we mentioned before, we all wonder it. And so it's a fresh take, but also a familiar take as well.
And I think when Erin and Adam began going through the genetic testing, and what they discovered is I was the carrier. So again, that was another coincidence. And it's hard on us to be the carrier of something that we can't do anything about. We can't fix, we can't change. We have to learn how to accept and move forward. And when Erin went through her loss, that's really when we began writing some together, because
Yes.
I wanted to give her an outlet. And I also was having trouble with the blank page. And so that was just a combo that worked great for us to begin writing, and me to begin working with her on how to write for today's
Yes.
fiction you know,
Yep.
and then it just turned into a powerhouse of working together.
It's been wonderful. Cindy is an amazing teacher. I mean, I'm sure you guys have figured that. She's written 20 something books and they're all incredible. But yes, that time did kind of kickstart our more official co-writing career. The first one we wrote was this Christmas Remedy. But
And it was just too soon at that
Yeah.
time to even talk very much about this, but I felt like it would be a good healing book for us to explore how frail families are. We're tough. We're like the human body. We're very tough, very resilient, and extremely frail, and things can
Yeah.
go wrong and cause a lot of issues. So our family structure is much the same.
Mhm.
Yeah, and let me say this, I think it's very brave that you brought it up at the end of the book and the author notes at the end, because it's not a topic a lot of people talk about, the loss of a miscarriage or a loss of
Yes.
a child like that. So, because I can remember I have, this was many years ago and I was like 1.5, so I don't remember it, but my mom still, as long as she could remember, she talked about my brother Jimmy she lost. So it's a personal thing, where you need lots of people to go along with. So I think it was very brave for both of you, but especially you, Erin, that you were able to talk about it this way.
Yes, and let us explore it. Let us talk about it through interviews. And you know, one of the things, there's a lot in our society that we aren't pleased with where it is.
Yeah.
But one of the things I'm very proud of is how much we are talking about miscarriages and losses and infant deaths, and help people accept where we are and accept that pain. It used to be that no one knew, you know, you don't tell anyone you're pregnant until you're 16, 18 weeks. That's fine if it's a personal decision. But if it's because people are going to dismiss your grief, that just adds grief to grief. And so I love that we're at a point in society of talking about this and letting people grieve as they need to. Give them room. It was an entire hope and dream they carried.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, because you not only have to lose the loss of the person, but the loss of the life you had planned. And that's two different grieving processes.
It is. And then to bury it. And you know, I don't understand how this part works, but I know because I love reading self-help books and trying to understand how people work, what makes them tick, is the more we bury grief, the less we are able to share it, the stronger it gets and the longer it can take us to get past it. So we are often doing the opposite of what we need to get to a better place.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for including that part. It is definitely one that that storyline, that thread is one I will mention to readers when they ask about it, because I think it almost is over or hidden under the time traveler part, because that's so unique and it's well written. But to me, it's just as important as that part, especially in fiction, because I was reading, somebody was saying that in nonfiction, you learn by reading, in fiction, you learn by imagination.
Yes.
I saw
I
that
loved
recently.
that. And
Yeah,
it's
and I
so
think I got it
true.
even wrong, but that last part about fiction, you learn through imagination. I love that. I love it. And, listening to Eliza and her grief, I'm able to walk alongside her so that if it does happen to somebody I know, and we all know it does,
Yes.
I have something to rest on if I personally have not experienced it. So,
Yes.
yeah, I love that in fiction stories. So,
Yes.
well, that was not anything I had on our list, but you guys answered all of that beautifully. So, it's such a hard topic to bring up. So, I'm glad
It
you
is.
guys, you faced it head on. I admire that. So okay. So the question I really, really, really want to ask is, and you touched on it. So how do you get time travel in an Amish book? I mean, you touched on it a little bit about, so, and I know we're trying very hard not to give spoilers away, but we kind of did already.
Yes. What Cindy was saying, it's because they have, well, all right, I'm going to actually touch on what you said. You're about fiction. You learn by imagination. all fiction is fantasy in a way, because it hasn't happened. We're imagining a story that hasn't happened. And so adding an additional time travel element, it's just a little bitty step to because it's already a fiction story. And we wanted to make sure, and our team at Tyndale was so fantastic at making sure that we approach it in a way that feels good and right to us and not sacrilegious in any way. And
Right.
so we have the ancestors of these women who experience their own losses, their own grief. They have a quilt that they have covered in prayer.